Kevin here for WranglerForum.com. Got the Jeep back in the garage for some upgrades. Specifically, I'm going to go ahead and replace this stock front bumper as well as our current winch plate design with something different. A bumper that includes the winch plate, but it's going to go ahead and drop the winch down between the frame rails so we can get some of that airflow back in that this current setup is blocking. It's also going to be a stubby bumper, which means we're going to lose about 20 inches in total length, which means our tires are going to have a more clear approach angle to an obstacle, which is a good thing. And frankly, it also looks a lot better than the stock bumper. So let me go ahead and show you what it is. So here is the bumper we're going to install today. It is from Rugged Ridge. It is their stubby, heavy-duty front bumper with integrated winch mount. The winch mount, of course, is back here. And then you've got your spots for both of your driving lights or fog lights if you have those equipped, or you can add them on if you want to. Of course, it has some tow hook areas up here to put a tow strap to. It also, I've gone ahead and added a shackle over here. It's got two different hole sizes for shackles, 7/8 and 3/4, which is nice. And then these go back into the bumper, and then they're also back welded to the big bracket that attaches to the main frame, so they're nice and secure with that as well. And then also, you've got this, what you call a striker. This goes up here like this, roughly right about there, and that's going to act kind of as a brush guard as you're going down the trail. Going to help deflect some of those smaller branches and things away from the radiator and the grill area. So our first step in getting this installed is, of course, to disassemble what we currently have on the Jeep. So let me get started with that, and I'll show you a step-by-step process on how to install this. So as I mentioned, the first step, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the lower air dam. This is pretty simple. It's attached by several of these plastic grommets. This outer piece is usually pushed up into here, which locks it into place along the channel. So what you need to do is just pop that out. Now, if you have an automotive trim tool, that makes the job much easier. But if not, you can use a vice grip, get on there and pull it down, and then it will come out for you. I've already got the front out. You can see when I put this down, it allows us to get more access up here to get these backside bolts to go ahead and remove the bumper off. So let me go ahead and get the rest of these out of here, then I'll show you what all this looks like. Right now I have the air dam completely removed, which gives us better access up underneath the bumper area to get to some bolts. You can see one of the, let me see, adjust this here. You can see one of the fog lights over there. You'll need to disconnect those, of course, before you pull the bumper off. You don't want to damage those wires. And then just on the other side of that, to the right, is where some of the bolts are going to be to get to the bumper. So let me get started on those. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and start unloosening some of the bolts on the bumper. Found that uses an 18 millimeter. I've got a pretty long extension on here. Going to go ahead and try to get these ones in here done first. Looks like we've got a little bit of a non-factory mud in here the last time we went wheeling. So let me see if I can get this. There we go. Not a lot of room to work in here, so just go nice and slow. Make sure you're not crimping any of the wires as you unloosen these. So at this point, I've got all 8 of the nuts off the back side. Be careful when you're taking those off. You have these metal plates that hold them in there. Make sure they don't fall and hit you in the face. And again, I found a lot more mud than I thought I'd have under there. Anyway, at this point, hopefully if I did everything right, this should just pop off of here. It might be a little bit tricky. It might be stuck in place. So let's see what happens. Get sides out. Whoops. Take that tow hook off. And this just comes off in one big section. Right now I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the winch wires from the battery for a little bit of safety. Then I'll disconnect the winch, and then we'll pull the plate. And of course these happen to be the elusive 10 millimeter. So go ahead and take these off. So as you can see, here are our mounting plates to the frame, where we took the bolts out from. There's also the vacuum canister. We'll need to relocate that in a different step. Good time to go ahead and clean all this up under here. You may not have access to it again for a while as well. Get some of the mud out. So at this point, I've got the bolt off of this side of the bracket, and I'm over here with this one. It's a little bit tight in here, so I'm just going to have to go ahead and use a wrench, a box nut, to get in here. And this does move a little bit, so it's going to be one of these. Move it a little bit, and go ahead. Get it. Now you could also go ahead and move the vacuum, but that would probably be too easy. So just go ahead and do it like this a couple more times and see how it's going. Yeah, it's loosening up really much easier now. Probably just take it out like this. Everything should be disconnected. Let's see if we can just lift this up and then carefully set it down. Hopefully this works. If not, we'll find out really fast. So before I go ahead and test fit the bumper in, I wanted to go ahead and set the lights in the respective slots. Now, if you happen to have an LED light that came with it, you're going to need this bracket, which comes, of course, with the bumper, and this is only for the LEDs. If you have the incandescent bulbs, which is what I have, then you're going to go ahead and use the supplied hardware, which consists of carriage bolt, lock washer, and a nut. So let me go ahead and get these installed, and then we'll go ahead and test fit the bumper on the Jeep. Right here I have the hardware we're going to use to attach the bumper to the frame. You've got two different sets. You've got a bolt that's going to go from the frame side into the bumper, and then you've got a series of nuts that are going to attach to the bolts already coming from the bumper. So right now I'm going to go ahead and test fit the bumper in here. There are some nylon flat square washers that go on the bolts that are attached here to the bumper. We're going to have those all the way down to hold the holes or the bolts in place as you set it in here. There we go, just kind of a test fit right there. So it's getting a little bit later than I was anticipating, got a late start on the project today. So I'm going to finish up for this evening by pulling the winch cable out of the winch so I can go ahead and get it mounted up in here first thing tomorrow. But for right now, I would say a pro tip on this, before you disconnect the winch, pull your winch line out, especially if you have this kind of especially if your hook isn't able to be unhooked, like mine is, and then it makes things a lot easier. Otherwise, you get to spend about 15 minutes pulling the cable out, which doesn't always come out too easy. Anyway, I will see you guys in the morning. So to mount the striker, there's going to be a hole in the top, and then a hole in the front. You're going to go ahead and put the supplied hardware through. Right here, just simply a nut and a washer. And we can go ahead and there's one up here and one on the top. And let me go ahead and pull this over. So you can kind of rest it here like this. Without falling would probably be a better idea. So there's that. And same slots on the back side. This is a vacuum canister, and on certain models, this being a 2015, you need to relocate it to properly fit the winch in. Earlier year models may not have it in this exact spot, but there's two 10mm bolts you're going to have to remove, one here and then one on the back side, and they'll put a new back bracket in here, along with these T-brackets that fit in here and secure it all. So let me get this out of here, and I'll show you how it goes together. So right now we've got the vacuum out of there. This will come in here and mount like this, and then we'll get this mounted up in here. Adjust things a little bit yet, but that will mount something in there like that. So I've got the bracket, of course, that goes to the vacuum canister, and then that attaches to the winch plate bracket over here. I've got the top bolt in under here. You can probably just barely see it. I've got one more bolt. Again, I wouldn't snug this up completely until you get both brackets in. Well, if you need to adjust anything, you've got a little bit of movement to do that. So those are, should we say, hand tight in there for right now. Alright, looking good. On the passenger side, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start off by putting one of these brackets inside the slot over here. Kind of space it evenly. Adjust that in there. And then we'll be using this passenger side bracket, and then the bolt, or the nut, is going to go in here like that. We'll go in. This might be a little bit difficult to get in here just due to the way the bracket's made. And then, of course, watch out for all of your lights. We'll attach the back hardware in here. Let's get this in here. So once I get all these tightened down, then we'll need to go ahead and down here from the back side, because once the winch is in, you won't be able to get in here too easily, is put the fair lead for the winch on, and then go ahead and put the winch on, and then we're almost done. So the larger bolts here, according, are going to go to 60. Good. And the smaller bolts are supposed to go to 40. So ran into a slight clearance problem. The lip you're seeing touching the winch motor is actually part of the Jeep frame, not on the bumper. But it's just enough to go ahead and not let the holes line up underneath for the bolts properly. So I'm going to pull the winch out and grind that down. As you can see, I've got the winch fully seated in the bumper. It is secured from the bolts, and everything else is up to spec. Overall, this installation went pretty hassle-free. The only off-page problem we ran into was the fact that this, I guess, winch motor is a little bit oversized. It was making contact with the frame mount from the Jeep. Grinded that right off, no problems at all. So to review, things I like about this. Number one, I'm glad the winch is lower now. We're going to have back-to-factory airflow into the radiator for cooling. That's great. I like the fact that there's nothing directly in front of the tire blocking its path to an obstacle. That is a big bonus as well. And then also I like the fact that you've got two types of recovery systems on here. You've got one that can take a strap, and then you've got two spots, depending on what size you choose, for a shackle. That is also very nice. And then of course we got the X brace up here. That's going to help divert some tree limbs and other brush from getting into the winch, maybe a little bit into the radiator as well. But there's still one thing I haven't quite showed you yet, and that has to do with the high lift jack. Below each of the tow hook locations on either side there is a slot, and that slot is to fit a high lift jack into. So let me show you how that works. You're going to go ahead and get your high lift, and you're going to bring it up to the appropriate side, which is right about here. Put it into the slot, and of course flip the switch on the high lift to make it go up. Always be careful when using a high lift jack. You want to stay out of this area with your head. Probably should have gloves on, but I think we're not going to lift it that high, so we should be okay. And then down. And the Jeep's going to come right up. Now, using a high lift to change a tire can be a little bit challenging depending on what type of ground you're on. Obviously, the taller you get with the high lift, the less stable it can become. They do make bases for them, or carry maybe a block of wood to give it a better base. Also, in addition to that, you got to go up pretty high as the suspension flexes to get that tire off the ground. Some folks will go ahead and use a ratchet strap to the axle housing up to the frame to aid with that. But it is nice to have that in there. Or it could be the fact that maybe you're high centered on a rock and this can help get you off of it. That's a good thing to have as well. So hopefully this gives you a better idea of how this bumper and winch mount installs on the Jeep. I definitely think you should take a look at it if you're considering something like this on your list. It's a nice feature to have. So big thanks to the guys over at Rugged Ridge for providing this for us to install today. And unfortunately, the worst thing about this install was I got a little bit dirtier than I normally do. Anyway, guys, have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Get this down.